37 minutes after the hour now, she's been called the Mom Donnie of the West. Self-proclaimed socialist Katie Wilson is Seattle's brand new mayor-elect.
Seattle's socialist mayor-elect Katie Wilson is facing major issues when she takes office in January, like empty storefronts, boarded-up restaurants. Seattle independent journalist Brandy Cruz joins me now. Brandy, it doesn't sound like business is doing very well in the central district of Seattle, does it?
But does that change your perspective at all on the issue of surveillance cameras based on what you went through on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Appreciate it, but let's keep it on topic, okay?
Governor Bob Ferguson has now signed a controversial millionaire's tax into law, but now it'll face lawsuits and a possible repeal vote.
Socialist rhetoric vilifies employers, even while she continues to rely on them for revenue. The 73-year-old billionaire recently moved to Florida, saying he's in the retirement phase of his life, confirming Washington's policies are not the only reason why he left the state. This as Starbucks chose Tennessee as its new headquarters and laid off 61 corporate workers right here in Seattle yesterday.
It's just become more and more concerning for the outlook in Seattle. Headline today reads, Seattle mayor budget deficit nears $500 million, raising the threat of taxes and layoffs, including capital gains tax, and a citywide income tax. If only that was legal. Got some crazy times coming up ahead in Seattle, and you've got a socialist as the mayor. What could go wrong? Let's get into it. Here we go. Now, some people are going to say, well, Sean, she inherited these budget deficits and she's just doing the best she can. Well, yeah, but when you push out business like Amazon, when you push out business like Starbucks, when you protest against Starbucks and Starbucks leaves, your revenues decrease, don't they? I mean, this is basic 101 economics. And yet, doesn't seem like anybody in Seattle's listening. All they thought was, well, it's really expensive here. Let's hire a unemployed college dropout. It's never really had a great job, but she's a socialist, so everything should get better. I mean, what could go wrong, right? I mean, literally, that is what Seattle did. Seattle doubled down on stupidity. And Seattle deserves everything it gets. So even if it did inherit a big budget deficit from former Mayor Bruce Harrell, who I've said many, many times, we're going to regret not reelecting Bruce Harrell. Because Bruce Harrell, with all of his faults, with all the crazy stuff, he had to do to kind of be mayor of Seattle, appease the far left, appease the libtards. And you got some really mentally challenged people in Seattle that just live in this bubble, right? Because otherwise, where else would they live? Portland? Maybe. Portland's got the same drill, right? Massive spending, declining revenues. Not a good combo, especially when you've got a socialist as mayor, because she's going to jump for that progressive revenue. Oh, we need to tax business, push business out, revenue decreases, expenses continue to go up. Seattle is facing a near $500 million budget deficit over the next 3 years, according to new city projections that exceed former Mayor Bruce Harrell's estimates by more than $100 million. So we went from, this is pretty bad, to this is even worse than pretty bad. Growing shortfall comes as Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson signals her administration is preparing a mix of new taxes and spending cuts to close the gap. Spending cuts on what? What is she going to cut? I mean, honestly, what is she going to cut? Bus drivers? Going to cut City Hall? Homeless spending? No. No. Seattle loves spending on projects that do not work. We had some moderate Democrats. We had Sarah Nelson, came from a business background, Fremont Brewing, right? She had a Seattle city attorney, Republican. Got rid of those because they just weren't working out, right? So let's get somebody worse. Growing shortfall comes as Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson signals her, okay, we already read that, so cut that sentence. In a recent interview on the Seattle Channel, Wilson said her team is exploring additional revenue options alongside cuts as the city grapples with rising costs and slowing revenue growth. This is that slow rolling train wreck that we are witnessing right now. Because when you push out businesses, and we've had so many businesses leave. Hey, tax Amazon. What could go wrong? Seattle literally did that, right? Jumpstart tax. And what happened? Amazon has left Seattle in droves, gone to Bellevue. Because that's what you do. You go to your next option that makes sense. Bellevue makes sense. But now we've got this statewide income tax incoming. You know, more and more people are going to be driven out. Billionaires have left. Howard Schultz left. Howard Schultz just penned an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal after he moved, of course, to Florida, saying that the business environment here in Washington State and specifically Seattle is hostile, which it is. So you're pushing businesses out. You're pushing people that know how to run businesses out. You're pushing out billionaires. Who's going to be left holding the bag? Who's going to be left holding that tax burden? Yeah, the people who can't leave and the people who are mentally challenged. Oh, this is great. I don't mind paying, 90% of my paycheck to taxes. It's great. It's epic. So the updated forecast marks one of the largest projected budget deficit Seattle has faced in years. Perfect, because we got a socialist mayor with no skill set to deal with this, and sets up what could become a contentious debate over taxes, city services, and spending priorities at City Hall. Capital gains tax is absolutely on the table. Really? Are you shocked? Why wouldn't it be? Capital gains, absolutely. Wilson explained during the Seattle Channel interview, but realistically, the revenue we would be raising through that is not huge, right? It's probably in the lower double digits. 50 million, 60 million, drop in the bucket. We're talking 500 million plus. We're talking $500 million here. We need to be able to tax the absolute F out of the constituency. How are we going to do that? Well, we're working on it. At a recent public Q&A at Seattle University, Wilson said she would be very interested in exploring an income tax on Seattle residents. Read that again. An income tax on Seattle residents, if she could. These Democrats, these progressives, these socialists, they will tax absolutely everything to the hilt. And this isn't just Seattle. This is the state of Washington as well, because we've had a supermajority for like 40-something years. Last Republican we had as a governor was John Spellman in 1980. Whatever that might have been. According to state law, it's illegal for local municipalities to create income taxes. King County Executive Jermaine Zahale. Oh man, that guy. Everybody's a progressive. And you know what? Progressive policy is just terrible. It's awful. It's hideous. It does not work. It's like socialism. You just got to keep doubling down because it doesn't work. And what else are you going to do? You're going to pull back and say, you know what? We need to really consider this capitalism thing. Because the whole socialism thing, it's just not working out all that great. So King County Executive Gourmet said as much the same for the create income tax and capital gains tax at a Seattle University event where he appeared alongside Wilson. They're tag teaming not only the city, the county, and the state with more taxes, less revenue, and driving out those who could possibly help create revenue through businesses, through jobs, through employment, through taxes, for all that. But businesses are just leaving in droves. Businesses are just, we're out of here. We're gone. Another likely unavoidable option, Wilson said during the Seattle Channel interview, was budget cuts. So you can only tax so much, and then you're forced to go with the old budget cuts, which could include layoffs of city workers. Why don't we lay off some teachers? I don't know. Let's just be equal opportunity, right? No firefighters, no first responders, no police. Need to keep piling on more police because we've got some crime stories going on in Seattle. We had a 77-year-old dude walking in downtown on 3rd and Pike or Pine on the Blade, essentially. Dude walks up to him and just basically smacks him down. The guy crumbles, goes over to kick him, and just, you got some utter nutty stories of things happening in Seattle. You need to start arresting, prosecuting, and incarcerating these people. But you know what? When you got a socialist mayor who doesn't want to arrest people for open-air drug use and prosecute them and incarcerate them, instead, let's go down the diversion pathway. That doesn't work. It's not enough of a pushback, right? Everybody knows Seattle's in play. Seattle is absolutely fair game for drug purchase and sales, stolen goods, human trafficking, retail theft, shoplifting, the whole gamut. Come to Seattle. The world's your oyster because we're run by socialists who don't understand reality. Because if they did, they would understand. I don't think they care. I think they think that basically destroying civilization, city of Seattle as we know it, King County as we know it, Washington State as we know it, it's okay. It's okay because then, socialism has a chance because everybody's dependent upon the government. I don't see any scenario where we're able to come up with 175 million of new revenue this year. Yeah, probably not. Probably not, especially the way you're going. When you literally boycott Starbucks and say, I'm not going to buy from Starbucks and I don't think you should either, and then they move a bunch of jobs out and they go invest elsewhere, you got to admit that tax may not be the best thing when you are needing to come up with 175 million in revenue. During the budget, director Ali Panucci shared 2 slides that showed the city's adopted general fund budget. The adopted deficits were 148, 129, 98 million. And what they're actually going to be, projections, 175, 164, and 149. 113 million more. This is becoming something else. This is becoming something else. During the interview, and it's not just Seattle, it's any big blue Democrat-run city because tax and spend. And they got to do it. They can't cut back on programs because of all of our generous social welfare programs. During the interview, Seattle Channel moderator Brian Callahan asked Panucci if the city was spending beyond its means. Clearly, if you have a $500 million budget deficit, you are spending beyond your means. You don't have the money coming in, you can't cover it. So you got to cut something, right? I don't think it's spending beyond the means, Panucci replied. We're delivering services that people need. Well, you're going to have to cut those. People are going to have to learn to live without. And then that starts that doom spiral, doesn't it? More taxes, less services, people move out. Because you're not getting what they want. And the cost of those services are more than our property taxes, our sales taxes, and all the fees that support the city. All right, so you're in a budget deficit. So you got to cut back. What if instead of cutting back, or instead of taxing more, what if they just made cuts? What if that happened? That would be wild, wouldn't it? Just go hardcore, just. Sorry, Seattle residents, you're getting your garbage picked up once a month. Yeah, and there's water rationing. Oh, and after 7 p.m., you need to turn off your electricity because we're just not going to have enough. Those potholes, yeah, they're just going to get worse because we're not really fixing the roads anymore. We're not doing any more future infrastructure fixes because we spent $490 million on a library bond. Yeah. These are, You've got misguided priorities and the inability to cover the expenses that you've already got going on. Panucci acknowledged the city's budget has increased by approximately $2 billion since 2016, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, you had federal funds coming through then, didn't you? Now you don't. And you're like, oh, good Lord. Need to batten down the hatches. But Wilson Panucci pointed to the combination of rising costs for the projected budget woes, higher expenses for public safety and city salaries. He also pointed to a general lack of funding from the Trump administration because Seattle doesn't deserve it. Stupid sanctuary city policies. Terrible. Terrible. Oh, let's pay for all the criminal illegals. Greatest thing ever. Even though our own constituents don't get free health care, they don't get a bunch of freebies, don't get a free cell phone, don't get a free and rising inflation and other expenses across the board. So general lack of federal funding from the Trump administration, rising inflation and other expenses across the board. Well, then how come Oklahoma and Texas have budget surpluses? Big, into the billions. Because they're also subjected to inflation, rising costs, and other expenses. But they've got budget surplus. Not crazy, not weird. How's that work? Yeah. Wilson said the cost of programs to create emergency and more permanent housing for the homelessness is rising. Okay, that's your problem right there in a nutshell. You don't need to spend more. You need to spend less. You need to cut your spending on homelessness by 80, 90%. And you know what? That will solve your homeless crisis. Because you know what those people will do? Without all of your effing handouts, they will go elsewhere. They will go elsewhere. They'll go down to Portland. They'll go down to Portland. But no, because you want to keep them here, because you want to keep this whole homeless industrial complex going, you're going to keep spending on homelessness, even though as you spend more money, homelessness continues to rise. Weird, isn't it? More permanent housing for the homeless is rising. Costs of that. Callahan then asked Wilson if she could cut spending by $175 million, the exact amount to balance next year's budget. That is a terrifying prospect, Wilson said on the Seattle channel. Terrifying prospect, making huge cuts. Hey, you know, when you're the CEO, you got to make tough decisions. And when you don't have the budget, you need to get in line. Yes, you're going to make some tough decisions. You're going to make some tough cuts. People are going to hate you. And that is why these tough cuts will not happen. Will not happen. They will tax. Oh, yeah. Love a good tax. Love a good tax. Love it. Oh. $2 billion general fund. About half of what it is our public safety departments. Cops, first responders, firefighters. Yes, you need them. You need less of the fraud in general. You need Doge. We need Elon Musk to come to Seattle, take a hard look at our books, take a hard look at Washington State's books, and just see, hey, is there anything we can cut down here? Can we drop this? That is also our funding for homelessness services. Less. Pay less on homelessness services. And I'm the first to say, like, we need to do better at how we are spending the funding that we spend on homelessness, but there is no world in which we need less funding for homelessness. And with that kind of logic that does not work, that is how you perpetually get to a $500 million budget deficit and no real ability to make up those numbers. You know, I'm moving to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is... they are investing a bunch of their state savings so that they will have income coming off of investment, and they're going to eliminate their 4.5% state income tax to make them more competitive against states like Texas and Tennessee that don't have state income taxes. But they're able to do that. Oklahoma is able to do that, and this is proposed. It's not a sure thing. And one of the concerns is well, we've got that 4.5% income tax now. We know that as a guaranteed revenue source. We don't know what the return's going to be on the state savings that they're going to take and invest into the market and get a return on. So, got some not sure type scenarios, but what is even more sure is that in a city like Seattle, they're not going to make cuts. They're going to have to spend. They're going to have to tax. They're going to have to tax, and heavily. Capital gains. How are they going to work that through? City income tax. Come to Seattle. We're just going to tax the absolute F out of you. So no world in which we need less funding for homelessness. Look at states that spend the least on homelessness. What do their numbers look like? Are they skyrocketing? No, going the other way, right? And states that are not raising their taxes, what's happening there? The low tax states, what's happening there? In migration, people are moving there. What's happening to Seattle? Businesses and people are leaving. Tax revenue goes down. These are such basic concepts that I don't think there's any chance that this kind of stuff isn't on purpose. It's on purpose. It's done for a reason. It's done to tank Seattle, tank the whole West Coast. Because why not? Then you got just a bunch of socialists running around. They're easy to control. They're already on your side. Player. People that promote, capitalism, people that promote businesses, people that promote wealth creation, they're on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? We hate them. Oh, we hate them in Seattle. Hate them. Because, the wealthy people are the cause of, terrible things, awful things. It's almost like people who don't get the vaccine. Know what I mean? So it's going to be really interesting to watch Katie Wilson try and come up with some very hard decisions. Do I tax more? What am I going to cut? You're going to have to defund the police. Seattle already doesn't have enough cops. So things are just that doom spiral is going to continue no matter what. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining. See you in the next one. Bye for now.